Good afternoon, everyone. I begin by acknowledging that we're gathered here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. And I also want to recognize the Métis people who share a deep connection with this land. I'm Rakhi, Pancholi, MVP Critic for Children's Services and the MLA for Edmonton-Whiteland. And I'm joined here today by my colleagues, Kathleen Ganley, MVP Energy Critic and Calgary Mountain View MLA, and Renaud, MVP Community and Social Services Critic, and MLA for St. Albert. Tomorrow is a big day in the Alberta Legislature. It's the final vote on Jason Kenney's bogus, no-help 2022 provincial budget. It's also a confidence vote on the premium. I can tell you that our caucus will stand on behalf of our constituents, the people who we were elected to serve, and vote against this budget. We will do so because it feels so deeply to help Albertans as they face a cost of living crisis. It also does not properly fund public education. It levels massive cuts to post-secondary and will further drive our future leaders out of the province. And it moves to actively attack public health care. Even after 2 years, our hospitals being pushed to the brink as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Even the support the government claims to provide is entirely fake in some circumstances and woefully inadequate in others. Kathleen will speak more about that in a moment. On our side of the legislature, we are listening to Albertans. We recognize that they are facing inflation costs not seen in 30 years. We recognize they're facing rising costs of everything, from groceries and rent to clothing and to gas. Everything is rising. The UCP knows this, and yet they've still pressed ahead with a $1 billion tax grab on the backs of families. They've pressed ahead with policies that have spurred massive increases to car insurance, to tuition, to school fees, and to so much more. We can't support this budget because it doesn't support Albertans. It's that simple. I expect the independent MLAs, given the criticisms they have leveled, will also vote against this budget. So my question to the members of the UCP caucus is simple as well. Why wait for the UCP special general meeting? If this is really about supporting Albertans, serving their interests, and changing the leadership at the top in the form of the Premier, you have the opportunity to take a stand tomorrow and vote with us against this budget. 18 members of the government caucus is all it takes to defeat this budget and show that the legislature really has lost confidence in Jason Kenney and his incompetent leadership. I'm encouraging each UCP MLA to think long and hard today about why they were elected and to vote on their conscience tomorrow. Do the right thing. Let's get back to the drawing board on a budget that will be there for all Albertans. Let's work on a budget that recognizes we need to be smart with how we support each other in the middle of another energy boom. We need to support families, secure our economic future, keep people here, and ensure no one falls through the cracks. I can't vote for this budget. Not until I see real support for the Albertans that I was elected to serve. Thank you, and I'll now turn it over to Kathleen Ganley.
Thank you, Rakhi. I, too, can't support this budget for many of the same reasons just outlined. I can't support this budget because it offers no support. And in fact, it is full of broken promises and outright lies by this Premier. He promised relief from skyrocketing natural gas rates. Instead, we got a fake program that's unfunded in the budget and isn't helping a single Albertan right now. And it set a price threshold so high that many may never see a rebate. Then, after Albertans spoke out, the Premier raced to bring in an electricity rebate and handed Albertans only $50 a month. The rebate would be a joke if it wasn't so insulting to Albertans struggling to make ends meet. The Albertans I've heard from think that this so-called rebate is a slap in the face. So like Rakhi, I won't support the budget tomorrow because I want a better budget. A budget that recognizes the cost of living crisis. A budget that works for the people of Albertans. I'll now turn the podium over to Marie.
Thanks, Kathleen. I also will be voting against this no-help budget. Not only does Jason Kenney's budget fail to provide help, it actively makes life harder. It makes life harder for Albertans who are struggling to make a life for themselves in the face of incredible adversity. This budget continues to use inflation as a dishonest way to take money out of the pockets of Albertans who receive income support or AISH. These are by definition the most vulnerable members of our society, and Jason Kenney is stealing from them. He's literally taking up to $3,000 from each of them at a time when they have nothing at the end of the month. These Albertans and their families live in every single riding in this province. Many of them have UCP MLAs. So I strongly urge those MLAs to think about their constituents and their families. When they decide whether or not to vote confidence or no confidence on Jason Kenney tomorrow, I really urge them to think about these Albertans. It's crystal clear to me that Albertans can't trust Jason Kenney, and I will be standing tomorrow on behalf of Albertans, and I will be voting no confidence. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Rakhi.
Thank you, Marie and Kathleen, and I want to note that I'm so proud of how you both and our entire caucus has fought day in and day out for Albertans. I was proud to tell Albertans earlier this week that we will bring forward real support for families should we be elected. We will end the Kenney tax on inflation, and we will repair the damage done to critical income support programs for seniors and vulnerable Albertans and families. I want to close by telling Albertans that no matter what happens tomorrow, hope and help are on the way. I promise you that on behalf of the Alberta's NDP, thank you, and all three of us will now be willing to take your questions.
Great, thank you, Rakhi. Just a reminder for those joining us on Zoom to use the raise hand function, and for those on the phones to use the *9 function to get into the question queue. We will start with questions in the room.
Okay, so I guess a technical question. So all money bills are like a vote on that would be a confidence motion. You don't need to bring in a separate one. Is that?
It's my understanding that the vote on the appropriations on the budget is a confidence vote. So what we're really asking the UCP MLAs to do, those who have already spoken out against Jason Kenney's leadership. They've said they have no confidence in him publicly, many of them. And they're going to be voting next week, now in a mail-in ballot vote for the SGM, for the leadership review. We're saying, you know, put your money where your mouth is. You've said you don't have confidence in this budget or in this leader. Now is your chance to vote against the budget because it also does not help their constituents.
And these supports that, well, you've mentioned are inadequate, but they're tied to the budget. So if Parliament is dissolved, there will be no voting. Is that correct?
Well, certainly we would like to go back to the drawing board and actually develop a new budget. We'd like to actually see this government put forward a budget that would help Alberta families who are facing these rising costs and address what's really going on and to stop actually making Albertans pay more because of rising inflation. So we would like to have the opportunity, and that's what we're asking for, is if we vote down this budget, you know, this is a confidence motion, but it's also an opportunity for the government to go back and develop a budget. We would be happy to work with them on one that will actually help Alberta families, because as it's tabled right now, the current budget does not do that.
Well, you mentioned the cancelled in-person vote, and I imagine some of the MLAs are going to be none too happy about that. But is this the first that you have called for them to vote in non-confidence, or have you had discussions back and forth?
To my understanding, this is what we're calling on the UCP MLAs to do right now, right? Is a budget is by definition a confidence measure, and we're simply saying to those UCP MLAs, you've already expressed that you do not have confidence in Jason Kenney as a leader, and this budget does nothing to help your constituents who are struggling with rising costs. So put your money where your mouth is. It's not all about the SGM. There is a confidence vote going on in the legislature tomorrow. This is an opportunity for them to stand up for what they've said they believe publicly about the role of Jason Kenney as leader, but also to stand up for their constituents and actually go back to the drawing board and come up with a budget that will help Alberta families.
Any other questions in the room? All right, now we'll go to the phones. Just a reminder for those on Zoom to use raise hand, and for those on the phones to use a *9 motion to get into the question queue. No questions on the line. We will wrap today. Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much.
Tens of thousands of Albertans have already provided their idea for how we can build Alberta's future. You can too by going to albertasfuture.ca.